Now get comfy, chat, and we'll read through this. Anyway, let's begin. The arguable visual hand of the market looks like it's in first person. Now, I would never claim to know whether or not we are so back, but I am truly the fool if I choose to. But am I truly the fool if I choose to reserve faith? Have we not already suffered enough at the market's hand, so irrevocably intertwined with countless moments and instances in our lives that it would make Adam Smith himself doubt the very concept of invisibility? The hand is no longer a symbol, but a blunt force of reckoning. No longer metaphorical, but a physical, ungodly hand crafted by a compressing century of intangible concepts and undefinable forces into a nearly flawless process, only for it to inevitably spend centuries intersecting in imperfect ways with the ever-present and unending ambitions of man. A hand that, before one is able to consciously acknowledge its comprehensibility and its presence, it has already tightened its titanous grip around your pathetically crushable windpipe and presented you with an unthinkable ultimatum. God damn. For those who have been visited, you probably know this is the ultimatum. Oh, sorry. I need to try to read ahead a little bit, as some people do this really well. For those of you who have been visited, you probably know this ultimatum always resolves in its most basic form. Would you like to receive the well-earned fruits of your own labour now, or never want the material again? On face value, an obviously favourable proposition, but the only catch is a brutally binding one that has led many a man to arrive at his expiry date far before his reservations were made. The condition, of course, is that you never be able to recapture the feeling of truly living in the way that likely led you to this point of intense contemplation. As with most men who possess even a pretentious resemblance of a soul, you reject this offer. You are already spiritually and carnally aware of what happens the moment you reject the riches and abundance that you worked so hard for during the majority of your mortal experience. And even though you may shiver with both fear and fascination with what has to come, you remain resolute. As you cast aside your primary sense of self and allow the otherworldly hand to overtake your facilities, or faculties. Faculties. You likely awaken in a bizarre, inexplicably located inner cell, even more inexplicably operated by a visibly out-of-place older Arab man whose demeanour both soothes your most oppressive anxieties and simultaneously awakens in you new anxieties that you were never even aware of. He offers you tea and explains that he sells just out of reach dreams to hopeless fools and wanderers. You silently curse yourself for ending up in a place where you could be accurately categorized as either. He sits you down on one of the thinnest of rugs you've ever seen that instantly amazes you with its comfort. And he begins to help you recollect what happened during that conspicuous gap in your memory. Piece by piece, bit by bit, it all starts to trickle back to you, and you're overcome with a multitude of emotions so powerful that only a woman could find the adequately ornate way to describe the state of being that you're gradually able to recall. The soft and tender coaxing of a lovely muse help you re-find your memories. The first detail to come back is being in a surprisingly well-lit room, almost too well-lit for your own comfort. Yet you feel that somehow you were trapped inside of a half-smoked cigarette, complete with a multitude of subtly distinct tones of ash, small scattered flames, as though someone had flicked the still-burning ash all over the room, and of course, the thick smoke of a recently extinguished cigarette and its accompanying odour. The walls do not appear to ever stop in your line of sight. They are obscured by the continually circulating smoke and bleed in and out of themselves like the wispy edges of a mostly remembered prayer. You remember that you could feel what felt like a mixture of the finest beach sand and the contents of a well-used ashtray mixed beneath your bare feet, and that the floor pulsed slowly and deliberately beneath you, as if a strange tobacco sleeve of a prison cell had a heartbeat of its own. And you hear a sound so unique that you're both sure you've never heard anything like it, and that it's already left such an impression on you that you could never have forgotten it. Not the sound of footsteps, nor the sound of a fake conversation, but more precisely, the slow dragging of a coarse skin across dry paper. In this moment, any other peripheral sounds fade out of earshot, and you can only hear this hauntingly quiet, yet all-encompassing audio sensation. From what would have been the lit end of a cigarette, a hand emerges, and although you instantaneously know whose hand this is, you try with all your strength to believe that it could not belong to literally anything or anyone else. It doesn't belong to a man, nor a god, nor some mythical creature that you consider as a conceptual possibility. Cannot materialize in mind. You strain your imagination with such desperation that your body goes limp with exhaustion as you finally accept the inescapable truth. The hand itself, swollen and calloused from the tireless wielding of authority, was unmistakable. This was Mr. Smith's famed hand, whose invisible moniker had never taken a greater sense of irony. You don't run, you don't walk, you don't really make much effort to move at all. Realistically, you couldn't. Even if your body had physically permitted any of those actions, your mind was so fully consumed by a stimuli affecting each of your senses to the point that both your cognitive ability and style of communication in this moment most closely resemble that of a non-verbal autist. The hand approached you in a way that a house cat might playfully approach a shrew that cannot escape and knows it. Safety recedes. Slow enough and with enough grace so as to not cause panic, but with the command and authority that you could have felt as if you were appearing before a judge. With those enormous and ancient fingers, each representing a ruling, you were found guilty on 5 separate accounts, with each gesture an increasingly more devastating verdict. With an equal sense of command that characterized all of his actions, the hand took complete control over you. It didn't move with an excessive pace or in a frantic way, but as if it already owned me and had done for millennia. Up until this point, you had mostly recalled just the mental and emotional facets of the experience, but as if you let your mind wander further, you begin to recall being held down around your waist by a monstrously large thumb and pinky finger, while the index, middle, and ring fingers took turns just absolutely raping the shit out of you. But the point of where you couldn't even continue to scream or cry because you ran out of natural fluids and your entire blood-covered body had gone numb with shock. At this point, you once again cease to remember any physical pain, despite still being in the midst of a brutal rape. And you find clarity, and that it was never the pain that had arrived first, it was the recognition. I was putting so much effort to read this as if I was indulging in a wonderful tale by Roald Dahl or The Cat in the Hat. Who wrote that shit? Where it's all fun and pitches and tenors and tones. And now I'm like, brutal. Now I'm in a Discord conversation. I get why you wanted me to read this. You're raped. You're brutally raped. I don't want to hear your bullshit no more. Is this hand me walking? Give me a second. I don't know how sensitive you're going to be with this fucked up topic, but we are all about to be raped by the economy, so honestly, this brutal depiction of reality might be something that numbs us to the shock of what's going to happen with the Trump economy. Anyway, wait, let's take a double swig. Woo! Feels good, man. Where were we? Up until this point, you had mostly recalled the mental and emotional facets of this experience, but as you let your mind wander further, you begin to recall being held down by your waist by a monstrously large thumb, a pinky finger, while the index, middle, and ring finger took turns absolutely raping the shit out of you, to the point where you couldn't even scream or cry because you ran out of natural fluids and your entire blood-covered body had gone numb with shock. At this point, you once again cease to remember any physical pain, despite what first arrived. It was the recognition that as much as your physical body may heal, you would always be that nigger that got brutally raped in the ass and every other unspecified hole by Adam Smith's decidedly visible hand of the market. That just hours prior to all this had only existed to you in the form of a concept. As you lay there, now in a state of extreme disassociation, you became certain that this had happened before, but not to you, so to who? I love it that there's this memory that is so foreign and so unbelievable that you can't even imagine it, but you fucking know that it's happening to you all the time, alright? Suddenly, the unbearable pain returns with increasingly violent pressure on all angles of your helpless body. Inescapable push and pull of being treated as a fleshy marionette. The way of the world seemed to narrow in scope to just the 5 extremities, doing what most would consider unspeakable things to you. An entirely defeating sense of escapelessness, and then a sense of realization so sharp it feels as though you've been struck with a bolt of electricity directly to your brain, and in that moment, you can see through the eyes of thousands, if not millions, trillions of previous victims of that rapist hand. You can think their thoughts, feel the breath in their lungs, feel the pains in every inch of their body, and this is when you realize you're not nearly as special as you had once believed yourself to be. As these experimental downloads continue to flood into your body, you're lifted from the ground, this time not violently, but with an almost stoic confidence of a being that had done this thousands of times before. The cigarette of a room suddenly burst into flames at the previously smoked end, and the screams and the cries of all the raped that came before you. You suddenly filled the space in a cacophony so loud you writhe in pain as you attempt without success to cover your own ears. You don't scream back. In fact, in that moment, the only thing you can do is simply whisper, "Why?" No sooner than the words escaped your bruised and bloody lips, you finally lose consciousness. You open your eyes and you're once again in the bazaar at Nizal, and see the older Arab man refilling your teacup while humming a somewhat solemn tune. "It's always worse than they remember," he remarks. "All of you first come here with no memories, and there's a certain amount of life and energy about you that just isn't there once you relive it." You ask if he has any means by which you might end your life. His eyes remain melancholy, but he half smiles and says, "Nothing that will work with any amount of haste. As I told you when you first arrived, I am truthful only to the business of selling just out of reach dreams to hopeless fools and wanderers." In a moment of pause, he notices the anhedonic look on your face. "Well," he adds, "I guess I also have some experience in the back that you could try. They're probably a bit on the older side, but entirely unused." Interpret your lack of response as an indication of interest. It quickly disappears in a back room for a short amount of time, during which all you can think about is a quick death and how to achieve it. After a few minutes, he returns with a small stack of wooden boxes in hand and says, "Yeah, some extracted experiences. These may help in a small way." He hands you the first box labelled "Meeting God and then the Devil on Bufo." You drop it on the floor like a helpless toddler. The second is labelled "Unprocessed Emotions for an Ephemeral Love Affair, Volume 3. He hands you the third and final box before you can even discard the second. Feelings at the bottom of a rum bottle, wondering on loop. Feelings at the bottom of a rum bottle, wondering on loop how it all got to this point. Dude, that's like a Benny Fodder quote or something. You hand him back both boxes without saying anything and lay down on the rug. No matter what you try to distract yourself with as you attempt to doze off, all you can think about is the hand. You think to yourself, well, of course, knowing what I know now, I would never have chosen this. But nearly at the same time, you start to develop a twisted sense of pride in being raped by the hand of the market, and a sense of superiority over those who haven't been violated. It's called invisible because only some want to see it, and only some have the strength. You think to yourself as your maladaptive coping mechanisms start to retroactively recolor the staggeringly traumatic event. End. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. That was a wee tale called The Arguably Visible Hand of the Market. What did you think? Did you enjoy the tale? That was pretty fucked up though. Porter, it really like rose and then you, instead of like, it can be difficult to like hit a peak in a story, which you did pretty effectively, and then have it come back down at the end, but then like having the old man become like this more like central figure really helped me as a reader in the story. Yeah, I'm glad I managed to pull it together at a certain point to read it, and the way I am like most confident speaking, I felt like it actually matched the tone. The first like paragraph or two, I want to practice, or I feel like I'm a big fan of like Wayne June and the kind of, it's just unreal, and like the Disco Elysium guy, like